Happy House, presented by Creative Kid Stuff. We're celebrating dads. Join us to take a look at great dads we know.
And he's telling everyone else in the class, like, there's my daddy, there's my daddy. And it was the biggest smile I've ever seen.
Dad likes to read. If you want to read with me, they usually are now the ones coming to me saying, here's my book, let's read this, Dad.
And learn a little bit more about what kids have to say about their dads.
My dad is really good at cleaning up my messes.
Join us for a special episode all about dads. You won't want to miss this. Hi, I'm Happi. I learned early on things are much easier with a little help. I also have a few tricks of my own to share. It's go time, people. Welcome to the Happy House, presented by Creative Kid Stuff. What do you love to do with your dad? What's your favorite thing to do with your dad?
That I get to wrestle with him.
You get to wrestle with him?
Yeah, and I like to.
You like to do that?
Huh?
What else do you like to do with your dad?
Play with him.
I am with one of the best dads I know, Chris Montana, and we're gonna talk a little bit about what it means to be a dad. Chris, how many kiddos do you have?
3 boys.
3 boys.
Oldest is 4, so
Okay.
we're gluttons.
Under the age of 4. Is that busy?
It is as busy as I have ever been.
Don't you think it's funny when people say they're so busy and they don't have kids? I don't want to really laugh at them, but it's like you don't understand what.
You don't want to be snotty.
No, but you never understand what busy is until.
It's another gear, right? You find it, and everyone finds it, but it is definitely another gear.
What is your favorite part about being a dad?
God, I love so many parts about being a dad. You know, I have these little boys who run around, and whatever I do, they want to do too. And you know, if I come in and sit down, this actually happened the other day. I sat down and one of my boys said he didn't like onions, and I said, well, I like onions. He's like, well, I like onions now too. And
you gotta love that.
Come on, right? I mean, if that doesn't brighten up your day, then you need to loosen up the screws a little bit.
Do you have one moment that sticks out for you that was sort of a defining moment about being a dad?
Yeah, well, this might be a little bit of an odd answer, but my pivotal dad moments have much more to do with my wife than with my kids. Okay. Right? Because, you know, I had an idea of what I was going to be as a dad. She had an idea of what she was going to be as a mom, but, you know, until you actually are in it, you don't know what you're going to be as parents. And I think that one of the better skills that any dad can have is probably figuring out how to work with mom, right? And
what are you saying about us, Chris?
I'm not. No, I mean it's tough when you know you think this is what I think is going to be best for my little boys, and she's thinking something different, and you realize that you're both only 50% of the puzzle, and you have to come together to come up with a solution. And it's not a dictatorship on either side. No. And I think that to me, like as far as what's going to be great for them as they grow up is to have 2 parents who can do that. And that's both. My wife is used to running things, and so am I. And so, maybe that's why we're attracted to each other. But it also creates some conflict. But I think it creates a cool opportunity for both of us to grow as parents and think about, well, what can we do that's best for these munchkins?
That's awesome. What is your favorite thing to do with your boys?
I like playing any kind of game with them. I mean, they're very physical, and I don't mind that. And so, if they have it their way, then all we're doing is wrestling and rumbling in the house in every room in every way. They really like baking with me.
They do?
Yeah, they love it. And if I make anything, regardless of what they're doing, TV could be on anything, they will run in and they'll want to bake with me. And they want to mix things, and they know the rules.
Which is science. Basically, it's science.
It is science.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
We're getting them started early.
That's awesome. Do you have a memory that you want to share with us about your dad?
Well, with me, it's kind of an interesting bag because I didn't have a dad that was part of my life until I was adopted at 14. And so, and that definitely affects the dad that I am now. I obviously, have my dad to look at, and, from a teenager on, I had him as a role model, and I definitely try to live up to his standard. But then I also remember that when I was that young kid, when I was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I didn't have that dad there. And so now I try to be what I wanted when I was a kid. And I try to be that, supportive, but also guiding influence that I know that I needed and wish that I had had.
That's very inspirational, honestly.
Well, there's only two ways you can really go with it. Either that's going to be the basis of a good story or a bad one. It's either an excuse or it's an opportunity. And for me, I think that it's an opportunity for me to think a little more about what I'm doing with my kids, because I know the impact that it can have, and I know the impact that the absence can have. And so that affects what I do in my work. It affects, once upon a time I used to be at work all the time, but as they grow up, I know that someone needs to be there. And I know that dad needs to be a physical presence that is there in the home, and doing multiple things in the home, not necessarily just showing up to wrestle. Right. So that every day, that guides what I do with them.
That's awesome.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? But you couldn't hear Ash's voice because he was listening very quiet.
Ideas for starting a parent-child book club, presented by Supermoms. Chris, you and I both love to read to our kids.
Absolutely.
And we talked about starting a book club. And one thing I specifically loved about that is you talked about how you want to do other things besides wrestle with your boys or play sports with your boys. Like, you want to do things that dads don't typically do.
I think it's important that kids see that, right? And that they understand that dads can be, the whole picture, right? And as they grow up and they try to emulate those dads and one day become those dads, that they also will be the readers, right? And, the thinkers in the house as well.
I think that's great. I'm here today with our friend Chris Montana. We did a segment at his family-owned business, and during that I found out that you and I are both kind of book nerds. I don't know, English majors.
The secret's out.
Secret's out. We love books. And both of us are very passionate about getting our kids to read.
Absolutely.
So I proposed an idea to you about doing this segment regarding getting a parent-child book club started, because I think a lot of people have play groups. I mean, that's a very common thing, but why not incorporate reading into that as a piece of it?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me, and that's why when you brought it up, I said, what a great idea. What's also nice for mom and dad is to be able to get together with other mom and dads and then share something with their kids that is going to be a lifelong skill for them, that is going to be important for them to build and also have an interest in themselves. You don't want to be shoving reading down our kids' throats. We want them to want to come to it, and this is one way that we could do that. Mm-hmm. And one nice thing about doing something like this is that it still is structured. There's still something that you can share with your kid, right? And you can sit down, you can do that, both you and your son or your daughter, but also you could do that with other dads, right? And so you can kind of share in that collective nervousness and apprehensiveness of, how do I relate to my kid? Well, you can use the book as the way to relate to your kid.
And I think the nice thing about the book club, you and I talked, is a lot of times dads, specifically dads with boys, and I'm not going to stereotype, but even dads with girls I think do this, but go to that physical thing, that taking your kids skating, taking your kids to do something, but to be part of something more cerebral, which is a lot of times what moms take on, is kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I do that too. One of the things that you will hear when you walk into my house, particularly when I come home from work, is my oldest boy, who's only 3, is going to run up and he's going to scream wrestle, because it's on, right? Yeah. And I love wrestling with my kid, and I don't see anything wrong with that. But at the same time, you want your kid to see you as more than, you don't want to compartmentalize these different skills that they're gonna learn. As a father of 2 boys, I want them to know that it's perfectly fine for you to, one, be a physical guy and competitive and all that, but I also want you to be a cerebral guy, and I want you to, also think about, how can you be using your mind. So sitting down with the boys and saying, yeah, maybe we wrestle this, that, and the other, but Dad likes to read. Do you want to read with me? They usually are now the ones coming to me saying, here's my book, let's read this, Dad. Of course, they can't read, but they want me to go through it, and they enjoy the process.
What I think is interesting when we're talking about a book club, I think people think about things like this, like chapter books and maybe reading offline. But a book club can be just as simple as taking one of your favorite books, your favorite picture books, and whoever is the host parent simply reads this out loud. There could be some sort of easy craft with it, there could be a snack, but it does not have to start when kids can read. It can start much earlier than that.
Yeah, and kids are interacting with these books way before they can read them, right? And that's one of the nice things about picture books, right? Is that we're going through it, we're telling the story, they're getting that story, but they see something on the page that we didn't talk about, right? They see maybe there's a bird off to the side. They want to know about that bird. They want to know what that bird is doing. And so even as we're going through a page that, for these books that are for younger children, volumes are not going to be written on those pages, right? That's not really the point. But we still can ask questions. We still can ask, hey, what's the bear doing here? What are the birds doing? How many birds are there? And the kids can still interact with it, and it becomes more of a back and forth as opposed to I'm just feeding you information.
I love that. And allowing, whenever I used to go into my children's classrooms to read books, you would get to do that. I would always allow space at the end of a page for those kinds of questions and interactions to happen. I think it's really important because they are noticing things that we're not noticing.
Yeah, and they want to be a part of it. I mean, what kid wants to sit still for? I mean, how long does it take to read a book? Maybe it'll take you 10 minutes.
Right.
Do you know any young kids who want to sit still for 10 minutes? I'm having a hard time sitting still right now, right? So, I mean, they want to be a part of it.
They do want to be a part of it. One thing I like to do with my kids is actually have them sit right beside me so they're seeing the words that I'm reading on the pages.
There have been books that should have happened in 5 minutes that have taken a half hour because it's what does that word say? What does that word say? And I mean, you're just, the grin, you can't wipe it off your face because that's exactly what you want. You want them to be interested in that because they now have an interest in figuring out how can they read it on their own.
Right. Chris, you brought this book today, and I've never seen it before because my kids are a little bit older than yours, and I think this is newer, but what do you love about this book?
So for any book, for any writing, you're always thinking about your audience. And when you're reading to small kids, those kids can't read. So you're telling them the story, but the person reading it is mom or dad. And mom and dad get to, have a little fun too. So what I like about this book is it's a good story. It's perfectly applicable. It, it has that little bit of didacticism to it. So the kids are going to learn a little bit, and that's fine. But there, the drawings and the dialogue are also reaching back to mom and throwing a couple jokes at mom and dad. So I think that is an author who knows their audience. Right?
I love that. I love reading very clever books.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say before we conclude also is I think that people think that once a child can read, they don't need to be read out loud to. And I disagree with that. Anybody loves to have a story told to them. And what's nice about that is, your boys are a year and a half apart. There will be a significant difference in one's reading ability versus the others at a certain point. But if you're reading out loud to them, that younger child can still, even if he can't read the book, understand what's going on and be part of the story.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So I love it. All right, I think book clubs, we should start our own book club.
Let's do it.
All right.
Hey Happy, it's Christopher Straub here wishing all the dads a very happy Father's Day. And I'm thinking back about one of the moments that sort of tugged at my heartstrings the most was my kid's first day of school, and my 3-year-old, we let him go and he kind of cried a little bit when we got there, and I was thinking the whole day when he was there, like, he's gonna forget about me. He's gonna not remember who I am or whatever. And I don't know, it's just those feelings go through your head about what is he gonna do all day and how is he gonna feel when he's done or when I pick him up. So about the time of day when I went to pick him up, thinking he's not gonna remember me, I see him knocking at the window as I pull up. He sees me and he's telling everyone else in the class, like, there's my daddy, there's my daddy. And it was the biggest smile I've ever seen. And I hold that memory dear because it was so sweet and so charming and so unexpected. And he was so happy to see me, and I was definitely happy to see him.
I'm at Happi Broadcasting today talking to people about being dads and having dads for our Father's Day special. And I'm about to find one of my favorite guests, Alexis Thompson. I'm actually going to sneak surprise her. Alexis, what are you doing in here, girl?
Hey!
Hi.
Just getting some work done.
Getting some work done?
Yeah.
What can you tell me about your dad?
I hit the jackpot with my dad. He's the best. Was always there and a good listener, lots of fun, super awkward in terms of his jokes, but that's why you have dad jokes, right?
Right.
He's the king of dad jokes. He's very kind, and he's also very patient. I know math because of my dad. He took the time to teach it in the way that I could absorb it, and I actually like math because of him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's actually really awesome.
Yeah, he is.
How many kids do you have, first?
I have 2.
And how old are they?
They are 28 and 24. When your kids get to be that age, you can start to be more of a friend, which you really aren't when they're young.
Right.
When people say, my mom is my daughter's my best friend and she's 12, no, you can be friendly towards a 12-year-old, but she's not your best friend. You're a parent.
Right.
And therein lies the difference. But when they get to be 24 and 28, soon to be 25 and 29, you're still the dad, but there's a little bit more of that friendship aspect of it also, because I'm sharing more of my life with them. Does that make sense?
That's awesome.
Okay.
Yes, I'm hoping to get there.
It's really not rocket science. You do have to kind of just use your head and use some good common sense, and you figure it out along the way. You really do.
Best advice ever.
Thank you.
What is your favorite part about being a dad?
Watching my kids play sports. It takes a while until they get to be 5, 6, 7 years old, and then you start coaching them, and then that's all you do. So, but it's the most fun. It's gratifying. It's rewarding. You get to spend time with them. Especially my 15-year-old who wants nothing to do with me now that he's 15 and he's a teenager.
Is that a thing?
Other than sports. So that's what keeps us together and keeps us talking about things. So
That's actually really valuable. Rocco, you have one little boy?
Yeah, 6-year-old
A
Bruno.
6-year-old?
Yeah.
Bruno?
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about being a dad?
I like just kind of reliving my childhood with him, playing, learning, having fun, and being a kid again, like with him and through him and doing all that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. One time we went to a Timberwolves game, and Belle Biv DeVoe was playing at halftime, and they were like somebody I liked when I was a kid, and Bruno happened to like their music, and we were walking to the parking lot, and we saw them out in the street getting their picture taken out front of First Ave, and I was like, oh my gosh, can we get our picture with you guys? And here it is. Here's Belle Biv DeVoe and my son. And I was like, yeah, that was crazy.
That's awesome.
Kids' imaginations are so amazing. So when you're playing with them and you guys think up of a fun game and you're doing something together and you guys can play for hours, can't get better than that.
I can't get better than that.
Yeah, it's great.
Every dad has like a trick up his sleeve. What is yours?
I have a hidden talent of balloon animals. And my kids don't quite know I do it, because if they did, they'd just be telling me to make a dog all the time or something like that. But I do know how to make balloon animals.
What if I don't believe you? Here you go.
Oh, these are good ones. All right, ready? So here's my trick I always do. So the key is, if they ask for something really fancy like a dragon or like a penguin or something like that, you always tell them, don't you want a sword? Because the sword is the easiest thing to do. And if they break the sword, you can teach them how to use the sword. So I always, and the key is too, if you know the art of balloon making.
Which I don't, but okay.
Once you make one sword, you make 1,000 swords, and it's the easiest thing. So
Okay.
sword, right here, here's how you do a sword. Oh.
It's happening right here.
Boom. All right, ready? Quick and easy sword. You do one twist, and you go through, and little Jimmy couldn't be happier. Look at that. And then every kid wants a sword, and that's all you got to do, and you can sit back and enjoy yourself. Don't show them. If you make one dragon, You're making like
Do
20
you know
dragons.
how to make a dragon?
I do, but I'm not going to show you a dragon because everyone in here is going to want a dragon. Then.
You're actually coming back on the Happy House and you're gonna make some dragons.
I will. All right, I'll show you how to do a dragon. My signature piece, and Alexis Thompson knows this, is my balloon monkey hat. A monkey hat that's great. A monkey hat wins.
Thank you so much for being
Thank you,
with us.
Happy. See you guys.
My favorite thing about my dad is that he wears glasses and it makes him look like a nerd. My dad is really good at cleaning up my messes.
I think my favorite thing to do with my kids is I selfishly get them involved in things I want to do. Like, I want to do that puzzle. I want to make that model. I want to go on that ride, and I want to watch the Ninja Turtles. And so then you get them sort of in your, like, you could celebrate it together because I already like them and they've never heard of this and they think it's cool too. And then we have something to enjoy together. Or they'll get into something that I really wasn't interested in, like, I don't know, like Superman, the Marvels, Iron Man, and they get really into that, and then because of it, I get into it, and then I can't help but buy them all the little toys and get them the little temporary tattoos, and I think that's something that we really find common ground on and we really like to do together.
Thanks for being with us today. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, this has been fun.
We love our dads.
The silliest thing my dad has ever done is he was like, do this, right, a meow. Instead of now, meow. Yeah, because he was acting like a cat. Yeah, you guys. My dad's secret talent is clapping with one hand. I don't know how, though. That's why it's called secret.